This story's got a maze full of freaky monsters, but the real highlight is the pure friendship energy between the main character and his epic friend. It kicks off in a dungeon where monsters are going absolutely wild. Right in front of them stands the main character, sword in hand, ready to take them all down. In a flash, he swings his blade, cutting through every beast in his way. He's Van, a 17-year-old swordsman, and has ventured deeper into the dungeon with a purpose. After defeating the monsters in battle with great pain, the head monster informs Van that he can pass. The dungeon's king awaits him in the deepest part of the dungeon. As Van enters the chamber, the dungeon's king is waiting. It's a dragon. Not just any dragon, but the Black King himself, Obsidian. When he sees the swordsman, he's impressed that someone made it this far. He's pumped to have a worthy opponent at last. The dragon gives him a good look, and it's obvious he's sweating like crazy. The dragon jokes that he's really soaking through. He tells the dragon not to rub it in, blaming the heat outside the dungeon. He then friendly requests the dragon to cool him with its wings. It agrees and starts flapping its wings to create some breeze. Van's definitely feeling a lot better now. The dragon says it doesn't want to change back into a human anymore, and our guy's left wondering why it's even in dragon form. He also asks if that whole speech was just some kind of role play. The dragon reasons it's just because they haven't seen each other in a while. The dragon decides to turn back into her human form, and honestly, she's a total knockout. She's Ryuka, and she casually asks him what's up. He hands her some stuff from his mom, and she thanks him but notes that it's more veggies. Despite being a meat lover, she agrees to eat the greens because they're from Van's mom. He recommends she follow a balanced diet, even citing his turtles as examples of veggie eaters. Ryuka, feeling exasperated, reminds him that she's a dragon. She still expresses her appreciation for the gift and offers him kalpis, which he gladly accepts. As they walk toward the room, Ryuka inquires about the hot weather outside. Van explains that it is indeed hot, as it is summer. The dragon girl is Ryuka Obsidian, the dungeon's king and the most powerful black dragon king, while Van Sirius is the only young man to have conquered this dungeon. These two are childhood buddies. He then asks her if she could do something about her subordinates who always attacked him when he came. She inquires if they are tough on him, but that's not the case. Every time he visits, he has to defeat them in battle, and he feels sorry for them. However, it's their duty as dungeon minions. Outside, the defeated subordinates listen in. Kobold reminds them he'd already said Van Kun is a friend of the king and shouldn't be attacked. Mino-san, the head guard, explains they're required to repel any intruder. Van just happened to be too strong. Another monster praises Mino-san's dedication, while a harpy urges them to lower their voices before they're heard. He and Ryuka have known each other for 10 years. Since his house is far away, they can only meet once a month. They're both pretty happy, and seeing them, all the minions feel super wholesome, thinking about how awesome childhood friends are. As it's time for Van to head out, she's already got a reincarnation game lined up for them. The other minions are really annoyed because they wanted to see those two flirting and staying the night, but Van responds that he's busy today, so she just shrugs and says it can't be helped, musing about the next month's meetup. He tells her they can play it tomorrow, confusing her. He apologizes as he hasn't shared it yet. There's a town close to the dungeon where he's joined the Adventurers Guild. Starting today, he's going to be living there. It's been his dream, and he's excited that he can finally pursue it here. The minions are curious if that means he can stop by every day, which has them worried they'll get beaten up every time he comes around. She hears this and teases that he must want to visit her every day, which is why he moved here. She asks if he doesn't have any friends besides her. He nods in agreement, confessing he's a lonely soul. She then permits him to come here every day. With a cheeky grin, he bids farewell, mentioning they will meet the next day. And that's the story of an unusual pair of childhood friends and their time together. On the flip side, all the minions are just feeling so warm and fuzzy about this cute moment. Then they bounce back to their spots since they got a busy day ahead. They're totally set on backing up these two childhood buddies, even though they know it'll probably end with them getting thrown around. But hey, they know they have to be there for them. The following day, Queen Ryuka hosts a gathering in the depths of a particular dungeon. With all of them seated in their designated positions, she asks for the report. They report that just yesterday, 37 adventurers made it down to the 7th and 8th floors. Harpy suggests changing up the traps since even the newbies are getting pretty far. They throw around different tactics, including having the First Division take on some of the issues, and then they ask Lady Dragon Queen about it. But she's totally zoning out in the middle of everything, just staring at the clock instead of paying attention. The minions think it's about time for Van to show up. She gets a bit taken aback, and they tell her to chill out since the announcer will let them know if any adventurer pops in. But she snaps at them, claiming she isn't waiting for him or anything. With her seeing him every day, the minions reckon it's a good idea to make a little headway. But she strongly denies it being that way. But her mind wanders to Van. It takes her back to about 10 years ago. She was on a trip with her family when a storm hit and left her stranded all by herself. She couldn't fly because she was hurt, and there was no way to blend in or hide. She felt completely stuck. She was totally crying. Out of nowhere, our guy jumped in, asking if she was okay. He ended up rescuing her, and they quickly became best friends, having a blast playing together every day. At night, she felt really homesick and cried, so he decided to leave the village on his own to help her find her way back home. Days and weeks passed, and it turned out to be a tough journey. After a while, they finally found her mother. He was surprised when Ryuka transformed into her human form right in front of him, but he was happy they had found her family. She said goodbye to him, but he promised that next time they'd go to her place to hang out and play together. So she was totally on board with it. The dungeon minions are just hanging around, finding the whole thing pretty entertaining. After that, she became the dungeon boss, and he leveled up just to come and see her. Now that she thinks about it, she's been feeling all flustered about it lately. That's the whole story, really. Just two childhood friends, nothing more. She finally snaps at the minions, asking if they get it or not, but they're too busy chatting to pay her any mind. She transforms only her head into her dragon form, shouting at them to listen to her. One of the minions chimes in, saying maybe she shouldn't show her angry face to him. Just then, they get word that a new adventurer has snuck into the dungeon. This massive dungeon has 100 floors filled with typical monster traps and a crazy number of dangers. Even the best adventurers have only made it to the 45th floor. When they heard about the new intruder, the minions jokingly suggested she could calm down a bit because it's super obvious when it's him. Out of nowhere, a bunch of announcements start coming through about clearing the floors soon. They figure he'll be here any minute, so they get to work trying to keep him occupied for about 10 minutes. As they leave, she's left speechless and starts waiting for him. He shows up pretty fast, and she thinks that was quick. Noticing her distracted state, he apologizes for interrupting her. She denies being diverted and asks him about adventurer registration. He tells her it went well, and she confidently replies that she knew it. He walks over and starts laughing, which makes her wonder what's so funny. Then he drops the news that he'll be back tomorrow, just like the good old days. She tries to keep it cool, telling him he didn't need to go overboard. He jokes about that smile she had on her face yesterday. He can tell she's been all by herself, stuck in this dungeon. She's a bit flustered and sweating, while he's just laid back. They share a quick flashback from their childhood and start cracking up together. At the same time, the dungeon minions, fresh off another beating, watch the heartwarming scene and find it absolutely adorable. At present, Ryuka is playing a game where she's gathered her own harem. And on the flip side, Van's not holding back either since he's got the world's top wizards backing him up. The dungeon minions look pretty confused watching this, but both of them seem to be really enjoying themselves. The orc tells Mino-san that they're playing a game called Reincarnation, where the goal is to get the strongest rebirth in no time. This time, Van's ally betrays him and kicks him out of the party, but he's not exactly sad about it since it gives her the revenge buff, which is pretty strong. The minions are sweating bullets, and one minion voices that it's a terrible way to live, but Mino points out there's no need to be smug about it. The Dragon Queen is clearly pleased. She activates her mass murder mode, changing Mino's view about the game, but still, for both of them, it's all just fun. Harpy is annoyed that they're both 17, and at this rate, it looks like they'll never get together, so she decides it's time to lighten the mood. She's a siren, part bird, part human, and her songs can charm anyone and bring out their desires. She thinks about starting to sing, and soon enough, it's having an impact on both of them. He walks over, feeling all fired up because of her, and she's feeling the heat too. Before long, they're making out, which is sending the Harpy into a tailspin, even if it's all in her head. Wolkan jumps in and asks if he can chime in. He really doesn't think that's the kind of progress they should be aiming for. He wants to keep enjoying their sweet, wholesome days without putting them in a weird situation, because that could mess up their relationship. This thought gets the other minion, Mino-san, worried that if they ever saw them getting all heated, they'd totally fail as minions. But still, the Harpy wants to keep watching them. She mentions that there's a decade of feelings there, and she just wants to give the queen some happiness. Kun calls out to the Harpy, saying that if she's thinking that much about the queen, he won't say anything more. But he doesn't think lewd stuff is the right way to go, so he heads out. Harpy, on the other hand, still wants to see this heated scene full of happiness. Mina warns her sharply not to casually interject her own desires. Another minion insists that ensuring their happiness is their top priority now, dismissing Harpy as foolish. She decides to give it a shot, braces herself, and picks up the guitar. She tells the other minion to cover their ears because she doesn't want any roses to grow. Then she starts strumming away, thinking it'll set the mood. But on the other side, when they hear the music, they're totally caught off guard. Their heads start spinning, and they glance at each other, making the minion wonder if it's actually working. But honestly, the music is pretty flat, and Van can't stand it anymore. He calls out to Ryuka and reaches up, both feeling a bit flustered. Just when the minion thinks they're about to kiss, he asks what the Harpy is even doing. She shrugs and responds that she has no clue, maybe she's just practicing her singing. They believe that a real Harpy screech is pretty amazing, especially since it's been a while since they heard one. In this world, half-man, half-bird creatures are generally divided into two categories. Sirens possess lovely forms and voices that mesmerize people to the brink of madness with their songs. In contrast, Harpies are frightful beings with menacing appearances and piercing cries, often scavenging for carrion. And she's clearly one of the dreadful ones, judging by her name, Harpy-san. Kun approaches and asks what happened. Mino-san assures him it failed and there's nothing to worry about. As she tells him to keep it down, another minion, unfazed, suggests giving up on this tactic. Harpy suddenly shouts that she's not quitting, her voice so loud it startles them both. She then demands to know why they're even there, calling out Mino-san as the one in charge. The minions look super creepy when she asks if they'd been spying on them all along. She's totally mad at her own minions, calling them idiots, and then starts shifting into her dragon form, radiating this insane, murderous vibe. Meanwhile, on the other side, Van tells Ryuka to calm down and wonders aloud why the minions don't just come hang out with them instead. She's confused but agrees. The minions are nervous, trying to decide if they should jump in or just let it be, since 6 people might make it a bit chaotic. But Harpy, totally sensing the crowd vibe, nudges all the minions to get in on the fun. They all start playing the reincarnation game together. Ryuka grumbles about Van's shoulder in her personal space. He blames it on the cramped conditions, so she brushes it off with a blush, but tells the minions to wipe the smug looks off their faces. But let's be real, they're all just feeling warm and fuzzy inside once more. Our guy's about to head out, and she hands him a book up to the 9th volume. She really insists that he should read it. He decides to give it a go. As he walks out, she just stands there, totally speechless. The minions are acting like it's just another precious day. She takes a deep breath and suddenly starts crying. She worries she might have pushed him too hard. What if he gets annoyed by her lending him so much at once? The minions find her delicate and adorable. Kun tries to reassure the queen, but Harpy jumps in, assuming the dragon queen just wants to see Van read to them. She boldly suggests Ryuka stick with him all the time, maybe even marry him, only to be immediately hit by Ryuka. Kun chimes in with a suggestion. He has this cool gadget. It's a magical witchcraft monitor, a 32-inch organic screen he whipped up using stuff he found in the dungeon just in case something like this came up. It can track him and show what he's doing in real time. He won't even notice. Plus, it also has a recording feature. Now she can keep an eye on what he's doing. She says she doesn't like the idea of peeping on someone like this and insists she's not like them. But at night, she's totally into it. She watches him as he gets sleepy and finishes the volume. Van thinks it's really good. She clearly has good taste in books. It's already late, so he decides to hit the sack. The next day, Van tells Ryuka the book was amazing. He's totally on board for the next one. The minions are just chilling off to the side, watching their queen stress-free, and they praise Kun. Harpy's trying to sneak a peek at the monitor, but Kun's not falling for it. He's pretty sure she's up to something shady, and yep, she just wants to spy on him while he's in the bath. Once Van steps out, Ryuka zooms over to the screen. He strolls out of the dungeon, casually singing. Later, while he munches on veggies, she comments on it. She's all about meat. She even keeps her eyes glued to the screen, even when he's asleep. 3 days later, she's still watching him closely, basically a full-on stalker by now. The minions are shocked to learn that she's been snooping on Van this entire time. Ryuka shouts at them to leave, but then rambles about his behavior, wondering if he's hiding something or secretly dating. But to the minions, she's just getting way too obsessed. She agrees but glances at the monitor, noting that Van looks exhausted, up late reading again. She figures he needs to catch some Z's. The minions tell her to take a look in the mirror herself. She sees he's hanging out with some new dudes who are adventurers. Wolkan recognizes them as he has totally wrecked them a bunch of times. Van mentions that his childhood friend has been feeling down. When he saw her yesterday, she had bags under her eyes. The minions get all excited, noticing they're both worried about each other. She tries to act chill, thinking Van's just overreacting. His friends are a bit freaked out. One of them asks if his childhood friend is a girl, and he replies, yeah. The guy can't believe that guys and girls can be childhood friends. He begs to meet her, thinking he might never get another shot at it. The others are just confused. Mino-san totally loses it when he sees this, imagining the worst possible scenario. But Van shuts him down, saying there's no way he can meet her. Mino-san gets hyped and cheers him on, while the others tell him to calm down. The senpai just keeps insisting on a quick glimpse. The knight reveals that the kid can't catch a break with girls, which is why he's acting all messed up. Van's convinced there's no way he could take his senpais to the bottom floor. Mino-san is still proud of him for standing up to those bad guys and protecting the queen. Though she's totally at a loss for words. The buddy in shining armor tells Van not to just sit around worrying. If he talks to her, he'll understand that there was nothing to stress about. Ryuka also figures it's time to stop snooping and just have a convo with him too. The minions are glad she didn't go full-on stalker. She gets annoyed, insisting she wasn't stalking, just a little curious. All of a sudden, our guy seems to pick up on someone watching. It totally freaks everyone out. They start to wonder if he actually figured it out. Ork-kun insists it's just a coincidence, but Van admits he's been sensing a presence. Ork-kun then reveals he used a bit of magic to transmit the image. Wool notes he underestimated Van's perception. His instincts are sharper than his own. Van glares into the screen, looking ready to explode. Ryuka panics, sweating bullets, and slams the monitor off. She can't take those glares anymore. Later, when he enters the chamber, he finds out she was worried he might not read the book, but he says he would have told her. He asks if she lost sleep over it, and she plays it cool, claiming she was just up late reading. So our guy is back at the dungeon entrance, ready to dive in. As Ryuka's childhood friend, the Black Dragon Queen, he's just going to crush it again. He charges down to the bottom floor like it's no big deal. The minions are all set to jump him, but he takes them out in seconds. Then he runs into this puzzle door and just smashes it without a second thought. He thinks about what Ryuka might want to do today, maybe play some chess or cards. Fishing at the lake on the 85th floor sounds fun too. He likes to come up with plans on the fly. On the 27th floor, there's this cave, and nearby, a girl catches some noise. She's got her sights set on making him fall for her. Out of nowhere, he hears a loud scream that grabs his attention. He heads over to check it out. Turns out, she's in a total panic and asking for help. She tells him some monsters attacked her and stripped her of everything. Her friends totally ditched her. She gives him a flustered look, and he says he's really sorry to hear that. He hands her some herbs for healing, then tells her to take care before leaving. She tells him to wait. He can't just leave her hanging like this. She asks him to walk her to the entrance, and the moment he agrees, she clings to him. The succubus feels like no guy could resist her when she does this. He just picks her up, and she tells him not to treat her like a piece of luggage. He jokes that he can make it back in a minute if he runs. She points out that they're on the 27th floor, and there's no way she could do that. She tells herself to chill out, as she doesn't want to get all swept up in his charm. She's determined to show this annoying adventurer who's boss. She's Suxi-san, the monster who lures guys in and drains their life energy. He tells her to just head to the surface. She replies that she's tired and doesn't want to go home tonight. Our lad, being all confident, points out it's actually noon. She snaps back at him to read the room. She bets he doesn't have any friends, let alone a girlfriend. He's totally thrown off, wondering why she's throwing shade at him when she asked for help. Something feels off about her to him. Because he was super late, the dungeon minions came by to see what was up, and they found it kinda fishy. They spot the succubus on duty trying to charm him. Only the minions and Ryuka's parents are aware that they've been pals since childhood. Harpy is wondering if they should spill the beans to her about it. Meanwhile, Ork-kun think it's important to keep things under wraps in the dungeon. Only they should know. If any humans catch wind of this, his reputation as an adventurer could really take a hit. The board of minions decided to just sit back and watch. Wolkan wonders if it really matters if one more person finds out, so he asks Mino-san. But the bull is boiling with rage. The thought of her coming between childhood friends is too much. He's ready to snap. He hates witches like her, always out there hunting for some daddy to take care of them. Ork-kun thinks they should hang tight. He's kinda worried about Van getting taken down by someone like her. There's some concern about that, but Wool isn't too worried. He just signals to check her out over there. Our guy is totally confused about what she's up to. She seems super determined and bets that he can't say no to her. Then, out of nowhere, he spots some scribbles on her stomach. He figures out she's a succubus, and she changes back to her original form. She thinks that even with her skills, she can easily handle him. He tells her she's terrible at seduction. She kneels and says he doesn't have to say it. She already knows. No matter what she tries, she fails. She's been fired from plenty of dungeons, and this is the only one willing to hire her. To keep her place, she has to use every trick she knows. This totally throws him off. She's in tears, pleading for his life essence. If she doesn't hit her quota, she could get fired again. But really, she's just trying to win him over with her crying. The minions are curious about her age, and it turns out she's actually 27. As they chat, Mino-san is really holding back. Eventually, he can't handle it anymore. He's being intense. He charges in, thinking enough is enough. They don't need more heroines. Our guy looks confused when he sees him. She realizes it's Mino-san from the board. Just as Mino-san's about to strike, Van jumps in and takes him down easily, leaving her stunned. Mino-san, on the ground, tells Van he's earned the right to move forward. He urges him to hurry, the Lady Queen's waiting. Our guy thinks about her. He nods and tells Suxi-san to stop chasing him. He runs into more minions. Suxi has no idea how strong he really is. She never stood a chance. She turns to Mino-san. Why let him go? She figures he's probably on his way to the queen. Then it hits her. She feels like he's got to be Ryuka's destined enemy. Mino-san mentions that the queen wants to handle him herself, since they really don't stand a chance. He says they're not going to fire her just because she's making mistakes, and encourages her to take her time and give it her best effort. Still, he thinks she should probably stay away from Van Kun. She can't help but remember how he stepped in to protect her. It makes her wonder why he's so nice to her. She starts to think Mino-san might have a crush on her. Even though she insists he's not her type, she can't shake that idea. Mino-san's worried that if he doesn't get back soon, he might miss out on some fun times and a little bit of heartwarming stuff. The minions are keeping a close eye on things. Ryuka is feeling a bit flustered when she sees him. She greets him, saying he took long enough to show up. He looks a bit worn out and lets out a sigh of relief. She asks what the big sigh is about since they just met. He casually replies that he's just relieved. She's not quite sure what to make of him. The narrative shifts to, how do adventurers make some cash? They trade in rare stuff like gold, silver, and treasure, plus special finds like monster horns and scales at the guild. He's hanging out at the guild with his friends when they ask why he's not off to the dungeon. Everyone's gearing up to hit worm hell, but most of the top-tier jobs are already snatched up. Newbies kick things off on the beginner floors, picking up healing herbs for a few coins. If they want to climb the ranks, they've got to put in some effort. Van quickly realizes that most quests involve diving into the dungeon. He mentions to Ryuka that he's thinking about bringing something back from there. She shrugs and says adventurers don't really need her okay to do that. She tells him he can snag any treasure he wants since their main goal is just to attract adventurers. In return, they take their gear and siphon off their mana, so it's a good deal for everyone. He's after some monster drops, and she asks what he needs. He's made a list, and it's basically just items that can be sold for silver and gold coins. She asks if he wants those minions, but he starts feeling bad for them since he beats them up every day. She tells him they're totally fine, since her mana heals them completely. He suggests hitting up a floor no one has explored yet, mostly because he doesn't want to take anything from her senpais. She recommends they check out a cool spot together. As they make their way to a different floor, they start reminiscing about the times they used to play hide and seek, which brings back some good memories. He mentions it's probably not the best time to bring it up, but he can't help thinking that it wouldn't be so bad if someone caught them together, especially since she's the queen. She brushes it off, saying there's nobody around to see them anyway. Van points out that there are usually monsters hanging around this place, and he's curious about where they've gone. She responds, saying they're probably just being lazy. Not too long ago, the minions kicked all the monsters out and moved them up to a higher floor for a bit, making up some story about needing to fix a mess on the 27th floor. Mino-san is all about getting rid of everyone for their queen and making sure her secret meetup doesn't get interrupted. Meanwhile, the duo heads up to the 70th floor, which is basically just some hidden ruins packed with treasures, and Van can't even recall it looking like that, since he usually just zips past without paying much attention. She tells him that this is where her dad hid his treasure, and that he actually built this whole place himself. Seeing the mess, he mentions that she really should clean up a bit. He also asks how her dad's doing. She tells him he's great, and that since retiring, he's been traveling with her mom and having a ton of fun. She even says that if he finds any cool treasure, he can totally keep it. Meanwhile, the minions are lurking above, observing them. Slime and creepy monsters start showing up from the walls, making all kinds of growling noises. Mino-san gets worried, thinking these might be mana monsters, and he is confused about why they are popping up on such a low floor. Usually, these random creatures born from the dungeon's mana show up around the middle floors. The minions are debating what to do because they think these things might end up attacking both friends and enemies. Ork-kun says these monsters are basically part of the dungeon itself, and the ones on the lower floors are always extra dangerous. If they're not careful, the whole place could collapse. Mino-san realizes that their main job is to protect their queen. They're ready to do whatever it takes to save her, even if it means risking their lives. They're all pumped up to take down these nasty monsters, but then, out of nowhere, Van jumps in and starts gobbling them up. Mino-san instructs his minions to chill out. Van asks if it's cool to take them out since they seem pretty sketchy. And Ryuka casually replies that it's all good since she has no clue what they are. She mentions they've always been called dangerous, so he continues to take them down. All the minions breathe a sigh of relief and realize Van's even stronger than all four of them put together. They start thinking about leaving the lower floor exterminations to him, since watching him fight for their queen is pretty awesome. Suddenly, someone jumps in. It's Succubus, who says hi to everyone. Mino-san is surprised by her sudden appearance and asks what she's doing here. She says she was on her way to work and heading to her spot when she heard this loud noise. She still thinks Mino-san has a crush on her. She asks what all the bored minions are doing hanging around. Furthermore, she notices they're staring at something and wonders if there's something down below. Mino-san quickly pulls her away and tells her not to look. He reasons that the queen uses the 70th floor to come up with plans in secret, and only bored minions are allowed there. She's annoyed and wonders why he has to make her feel awkward like that by embracing her. Now she's pretty convinced he's up to something. Harpy's also curious to see these two having a good time together. Meanwhile, Van's taken down all the monsters and is off to find some treasure. She shows him a bunch of different treasures, and he notices she's having way more fun than he is. She totally admits she's into it. Just as she points out a cool treasure, her foot gets caught on a rock, and she lands right on him. They both freeze in this super awkward silence. She starts freaking out, and her heart's racing, while he's just totally confused. Seeing this, all the minions' jaws drop in shock. She quickly steps back, mumbling a sorry. Flustered, she wonders if his heart's racing too. She calls out to him, but he's still staring at whatever she tripped over. He pulls out something that really catches his eye. It's supposed to be this legendary metal called orichalcum, and he's totally amazed, but surprise, it's actually a statue of her dad. He's stoked and says he'll take it, and she nods in agreement even though she's feeling a bit down but also kind of flustered. The minions think they spotted something cool, but Harpy is annoyed because they hardly made any progress. Mino-san wants to check it out too, but keeps Succubus from jumping in. After he shows up at the guild with the treasure, everyone goes wild over what he's brought back, but all he can think about is cash, while his friends are just blown away that he actually found something so crazy. The scene shifts to Van as he steps out of a shop and exchanges greeting with a vendor. While strolling along, he thinks about how he should probably bring Ryuka a meat pie next time. She would probably like that. Out of nowhere, a girl bumps into him. Van quickly says sorry, and the girl, slightly flustered, explains that it is her first time in town, and she gets caught up in the sights. Just as they're about to keep chatting, a big guy nearby spins around and tells her to hurry up. She nods and says she's gotta go, telling Van to excuse her. But as she passes by him, she drops that he looks like an adventurer too, and suggests they team up if they run into each other in the dungeon. Van stays quiet as he watches the girl's party member question if Van was bothering her. She calmly says it was just an accident. Van notes that the guy definitely looks strong. Then we switch over to Ryuka, who's standing there with her arms crossed, clearly worried. She mentions it's not like she and Van have that kind of relationship, but she still thinks it'd be nice if he'd react. It's super frustrating that he doesn't even seem to notice. Irritated, she turns to Harpy, who is buried in paperwork due to detention. She mumbles that she does not get why the queen is so upset, but adds that her pout is kind of cute in a way. Ryuka sighs, realizing trying to have a serious talk with her is useless. She slumps back and mutters about the embarrassing moment when she tripped and fell onto Van. Harpy smirks. One more inch and you two would have been kissing. Ryuka shoots her a doubtful look that makes her sweat like crazy, but Harpy quickly insists she's got no clue what the queen is talking about. Furious, Ryuka even thinks about punishing her 4 dumb minions for snooping around. The other 3 just stand there, all tense and sweating, with a cold shiver running down their backs. Harpy tries to switch topics, saying Ryuka is upset because even after something awkward happens, Van does not react. Ryuka snaps at her, calling her a stupid bird, saying she does not expect him to kneel or blush, but anyone would at least respond. His total lack of reaction is frustrating, and she grumbles that he should at least acknowledge it somehow. Harpy figures Ryuka could say it differently, but the point is still the same. Harpy thinks Van is totally clueless and way too comfortable hanging around the queen. Even as childhood friends, that is not great. She wonders why someone like Ryuka does not get him all worked up. Harpy says the real issue is figuring out how to make Van's heart race. She tosses out the idea that maybe the queen should show some skin to really get his attention, thinking they need to step it up from last time, so even Van would react. Ryuka is left stunned and yells at Harpy to knock it off. Harpy realizes she might have gone a bit too far. Ryuka exclaims it would make it seem like she has feelings for Van. Harpy standing there looking totally lost, and Ryuka asks what's wrong with her face, saying she probably shouldn't have asked Harpy for advice because she always goes off on some strange tangent. Harpy thinks that even if Ryuka is being irrational, it is still cute. She also feels Ryuka is clearly in a bad mood, and this is definitely the start of a classic rom-com moment where a female friend or sister treats a guy as a pain. Harpy thinks up more scenarios where someone drinks a potion that stirs up lust, or a situation where they end up sharing bodies. From her experience with gossip and romantic stories, those kinds of events always bring people closer together. She figures they need to plan a full-on strategy session later to help them out. While Ryuka keeps chatting, Harpy drifts into thoughts about what might happen next. She imagines Van asking her why she's stripping Ryuka, then pulling out his sword and saying he'll turn her into chicken wings. It's a weird thought, and she realizes she's probably losing it. Just then, she's jolted back to reality by a loud alert. The 45th floor has been breached. She quickly yells out an apology to Van Kun while Ryuka checks in to see if she's okay. Still zoning out, other Minion shows up and apologizes for cutting in. They tell her that an enemy has broken into their dungeon. Harpy is taken aback. Mino-san explains that someone's made it to the 45th floor, breaking the previous record. Even Ryuka is shocked. He clarifies that it's not Van, but a new challenger. They've taken down the guardian of that floor, an Inferno Ogre. The scene switches to the adventurers that Van met earlier. The guy states that he finally gets why A-class adventurers couldn't make it this far. They're probably the first ones to reach this level. The dude with one working eye smirks and declares he's coming for the Black Dragon Queen. The scene shifts to Van chatting about the legendary guy Gold. An armored dude mentions that Goldie is supposedly in town. A blonde simp dude from earlier asks if our guy knows about him, and Van replies that he grew up out in the sticks, so news like that doesn't really get around much. The blonde dude explains that Goldie is a famous adventurer with loads of legends about him, which is why he's got that title. Our guy nods, getting it. The blonde adds that Gold has taken on dungeons all over the place. He once stormed a fort by himself, taking down thousands of defenders. He also took down a massive monster called the Demon Queen Bapho. Even the toughest monsters can't hold a candle to him, and his skills are on par with the great hero. With a bit of a sad expression, he mentions that all the A-class adventurers are feeling pretty low. Just today, in Worm Hell, Gold might have already beaten the dungeon ruler. Now it flashes to the dungeon, where the 4 minions are standing over a defeated Inferno Kun. Orc Kun says they can only chill and wait for the adventurers now. Mino-san replies that he'll be okay since his life isn't in danger. Orc Kun adds that he looked into the adventurers. One is a swordsman named Gold, and the other is his mage, Sylvia, who helps him out with buffs and healing. Mino-san mentions he's heard of the legendary guy, but Orc Kun cuts in to explain that they cleared a bunch of dungeons with little caution. They don't take treasure but want the queen, making them a real threat. As they wait, they wonder how long it'll take for Gold to show up. Mino-san figures that since he took down an Inferno Ogre in one hit, it shouldn't take long. Suddenly, they all turn to their left, shocked to see the queen. They plead with her to stay back, but she won't budge, sneakily watching them. She says they're the first to reach the bottom floor besides Van, and she wants to see this. Orc-kun asks why she's so excited about it, and Harpy warns her that she's in danger. She shrugs it off, saying if things go south, she'll jump in, but for now she just wants to watch. Mino-san begs her to hide. Back on the other side, Gold and his mage troll down the path looking serious. When they come face to face, Mino-san calls out to Gold, recognizing him as the legendary man, while Harpy tries to pull Ryuka back to safety. Gold confirms he is the legendary one. Orc-kun wonders if Goldie is the kind of guy to brag about it himself. But Gold shoots back that they've come to take out the Black Dragon Queen and tells them to step aside. Mino-san and the others firmly say they won't let that happen and will stand up to him. Meanwhile, Ryuka watches everything unfold from the shadows. Wol-kun steps up, saying he'll take the first swing. Out of nowhere, he transforms into a huge muscular wolf, joking that being called legendary is often an overstatement. Harpy comments on how she's always been curious about how he pulls that off. Gold tells him to bring it on. In an instant, Wol-kun pops up under Gold, but he's quick on the draw, moving his sword down and nearly smashing Wol-kun's head in. He turns to the others and mentions how people always say he boasts, but hey, the legends about him are spot on. Orc-kun's sweating, thinking Gold looks like the type to get annoyed by that. Just as Gold raises his sword to finish Wol-kun off, Harpy swoops in, grabbing him with her claws and flying him away, his head all swollen from the hit. She checks in on him, and Wol-kun just shrugs, saying it's all part of being the underdog. Gold then chuckles, saying Wol-kun only got a little bump from that swing, which shows how tough he really is, just like a true lower-floor soldier. Next up is Mino-san, who tells Harpy to keep the queen safe with Orc-kun. Gold waves off Sylvia's support, and she nods, deciding to hang back. The fight kicks off between Gold and Mino-san, with their swords clashing fiercely. Mino-san's axe meets Gold's sword, pushing him back, but he doesn't flinch. Mino-san, sweating bullets, realizes just how insane Goldie is. He can throw out 50 slashes in no time and is kind of impressed that someone can stand up to Van Kun. Gold laughs and gives Mino some props, calling his skills awesome. Mino-san's puzzled by Gold's chill reaction, watching as he turns to Sylvia and says they're stronger than any dungeon boss he's faced. He's super pumped at the idea of fighting the Black Dragon Queen too. Mino-san gets pretty ticked off hearing that. Gold admits he lives for the thrill of battling the strong, but he's kind of bummed he hasn't found any worthy opponents in ages. The side dungeon was his last shot. With his boredom spilling into the fight, Gold lifts his sword again, saying he's ready to go on the attack, finally getting Mino-san's strength. Mino-san steps up, determined not to lose, thinking he never imagined anyone but Van Kun would push him this hard. Their eyes lock, and the mana around them flares up as they leap at each other, clashing with crazy force. They don't just stop at one strike, slashing over and over as the air crackles with energy. Ryuka shouts for Mino-san, who's focused on protecting Ryuka's turf. Fueled by anger, Mino-san's hit is so strong it starts to bring the ceiling down. Sylvia feels the weight of it and realizes a big chunk of stone is about to crush her. Ryuka urges her to watch out, and Gold yells at her to get out of the way, but Sylvia's frozen, stuck as the stone comes crashing down. Van suddenly slides in, saving Sylvia just in time. Everyone, including Gold and Mino-san, is stunned. Van checks on Sylvia, and she recognizes him. "It's the guy from before," she exclaims, thanking him. He nods, reminding her they met in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Mino-san and the minions are shocked to witness this. Curious about Van, everyone starts asking what he's up to. Orc-kun wonders if the whole rescue thing is praiseworthy. Gold can't seem to stop thinking about our guy. Mino-san starts to revise his view, suspecting that the older guy was a fiend and that the real enemy is actually the girl with the heroic vibe. Mino-san yells at our guy to back off and tells him to stop acting all princess carried because it's creepy and the queen is waiting. Suddenly, there's a noise. Everyone turns, surprised to see Ryuka staring at Van holding the mage girl, looking completely baffled. Ryuka starts to give off a dark aura that's way stronger than all the monsters combined, making them all shake. Van calls out to her, wondering why she's so mad. Meanwhile, Sylvia is trembling with fear too. Van thinks everyone else is busy, and Mino-san wonders how Van's going to handle the situation. He gently puts her down and starts making lots of hand gestures, trying to ask what's wrong since she looks really mad. On the other side, like a typical woman, she just says it's nothing. They start chatting in sign language, and Van says it's obviously not nothing. She tells him to leave her alone and stop talking. The minions are totally shocked because they're using sign language that only childhood friends would know. Our guy shows off a meat pie and asks if they should dig in together, but Ryuka's way too annoyed and just not into it. Harpy can't help but feel the ladies playing it cool, but lying, a total tsundere move. Orc-kun chimes in, questioning if this is really what they should be worried about right now. Van is really confused about how Ryuka could say no to a meat pie. Suddenly, Gold calls out to Van, making him pause. Could this be the powerful guy his senpais were talking about? Gold thanks him for saving Sylvia and quickly introduces himself. He admits Van's got to be strong to have made it this far, but warns that the real craziness is just around the corner. He suggests that Van hang back and keep Sylvia safe while he takes on the fight. Feeling uncertain, our guy hesitates, glancing over at Sylvia, who's keeping quiet. Then she notices Ryuka looking really angry, and that surprises her. She turns to Van, telling him to go to Ryuka, and assures him that she and Gold can hold things down. With a playful wink, she gives him the push he needs, and Van gets it and accepts. Meanwhile, Gold is gearing up to jump back into the fight, but before he can move, our guy steps up, putting himself between them. He says he has someone waiting for him, so he's got to go ahead. Gold is caught off guard by this and questions what one person could possibly do against these tough foes. He points out that these enemies are no joke, infant boss class or higher, claiming he's the only one who can take them down. Gold gets even more determined as he points out Obsidian as his prey, not willing to let anyone stand in his way. But just before he can wrap up, Van cuts in, straight up asking what he means his prey. The words hit Gold hard, sending a chill down his spine. He looks at Van with a serious expression, but soon sweat starts dripping down his forehead as he wonders what's up with Van's crazy bloodlust. Even the minions feel the pressure in the air. Taking their chance, the minions rush in to attack, trying to hit Gold while he's frozen. But then, a loud bang echoes through the hall as our guy swoops in, knocking one of the minions aside and pinning them to the wall. He casually mentions that he'd have to take them all out anyway to move forward, and Orc-kun can't argue with that, even as Gold's shock deepens. Van grips his sword tighter and declares that Gold will face him instead of the others. Gold is rattled, struggling to comprehend how this smaller adventurer can be so fearless. He demands to know why our guy insists on fighting. Our guy points to Ryuka, who's clearly boiling over with anger, and explains that she's his childhood friend. The minions are stunned by this, but Ryuka? She doesn't show any signs of backing down. Her fury just keeps escalating. Gold's mind races as he tries to wrap his head around the fact that one of the strongest dragons, the vessel of Demon King, is friends with an adventurer. Our guy calmly states that if he can beat Gold, he hopes he will back off. Gold is speechless, remembering how this very hero had taken down powerful monsters with ease. He starts to wonder just how strong this young man really is, but soon breaks into a grin, ready to put him to the test. Gold swings his sword through the air, unleashing a massive wave of mana that floods the area. He challenges Van, sending a magic blast that's way more powerful than what he used against Mino-san. Orc-kun watches in disbelief, realizing this attack could easily wipe out a mountain. As the blast charges toward our guy, he just flicks his arm and neutralizes it without breaking a sweat. Mino-san stands frozen, totally in shock, wondering how Van stopped that spell without anyone even seeing him move his arm. Not slowing down, Gold charges in with a brutal cross-slash that shatters the stone slab under Van's feet. Harpy yells a warning about his footing. As he looks up, Gold's sword is just inches away, ready to land a heavy blow, but in an instant Van lifts his hand, gripping Gold's blade with just 2 fingers, completely stopping the attack in its tracks. The whole group is just standing there, totally stunned. Mino-san can't believe what he's seeing, and Gold is completely speechless. Before anyone can even react, our guy lands a massive punch right on Gold's cheek, sending him flying like a ragdoll. The minions are yelling at Gold to get his sword out, totally mocking him for being so out of it. They keep telling him to stop acting weak, but Gold is drained. He tries to move, but it's a total fail, and he collapses in frustration, tearfully asking why Van is so ridiculously strong. Mino-san is laughing at Gold's miserable state, while the others are dramatically explaining that Van has been hitting the dungeon every month for 10 years. Ever since Ryuka took over as the dungeon's ruler, he's battled through all 100 floors over and over again. They're basically bragging that they practically raised him, like proud parents or something. Gold, though, waves away their explanation, saying it doesn't matter. The group is clearly annoyed, wishing he'd at least recognize their point. Then Gold starts reflecting on his own journey for strength, admitting he's been dividing his abilities into a million pieces. He starts to get what kind of hell Van must have gone through and wonders why he would put himself through all that. Gold bombards Van with questions, demanding an answer. Van finally responds, keeping it simple. He just wants to see Ryuka. This totally shocks Ryuka, who's been watching from the sidelines, and everyone else is surprised too. Her anger shifts to disbelief, and noticing her reaction, Van jumps in with a meat pie and shoves it right into her mouth. Ryuka is totally caught off guard, chowing down the pie without even thinking about it. Miyano-san can't believe his eyes as he watches Queen munching on the pie, commenting on how forcefully Van just stuffed it in there. Once Ryuka finishes chewing, a smile spreads across her face as she admits that the pie is actually really good. Van offers her another pie, and she eagerly digs into that one too. It's a cute moment that warms everyone's hearts, but Gold, still on the ground, is just sitting there thinking what is going on. Gold stares in disbelief as Ryuka casually munches on a meat pie, completely unfazed. His minions are grinning like they just won the lottery, and he's left trying to make sense of the scene. Confused and disoriented, he has no idea what just unfolded. Ryuka checks on Van, who admits he might have gone a little too far, but insists Gold really crossed the line with what he said. Sylvia steps in with calm assurance, brushing aside the concern and saying Gold will be fine. She asks them to trust her. Orc-kun notices something important. Sylvia hasn't even used a single buff yet. As she prepares to heal Gold, he realizes things are about to get interesting. Then, without warning, Sylvia wraps her arms around Gold in a tight, affectionate hug. He squirms, embarrassed, clearly trying to escape. But she holds on, teasing him about how it's been a while since he lost a fight. Despite his resistance, she says he looked like he was enjoying it. Onlookers stare in stunned silence while she continues pampering him. Gold, clearly flustered, mutters that they're still in front of the enemy, but Sylvia brushes off his concerns. She doesn't consider any of them a threat. The four minions suddenly jump in, pointing out that Gold is the real danger here. Wool and Harpy even goes as far as to cover Ryuka and Van's eyes to protect their innocence. They joke about not letting Gold get away with this cheesy love scene and shout for the guards to arrive quickly. Sylvia calmly reassures everyone there's nothing to worry about. She mentions they're married and everything she's doing is out of love. The crowd collectively freezes. The jaws drop. No one knows how to react. Seeing the disbelief in their faces, she casually adds that she and Gold are both 35. No one believes her. She laughs, explaining this always happens. She even reveals they have a 16-year-old daughter, which only adds to the shock. As she continues, she shares how Gold has been adventuring since he was young, and how she tagged along out of worry. Van begins to realize how rude he was earlier, mistaking her for a child trailing behind her grandfather. Sylvia smiles softly, saying that being carried by Gold earlier reminded her of old times. She clearly enjoyed the moment. Harpy, unable to contain her curiosity, asks if they've really been together since childhood. Sylvia confirms it. They've been friends for 30 years. Gold, now thoroughly embarrassed, begs her to stop oversharing, but it's too late. The minions are stunned into silence. A married couple who've been together since they were kids. It hits them all at once. Overcome with emotion, the four retreat into their own little world, shedding quiet tears of envy and admiration. Mino-san whispers that he can't get enough of this. Orc-kun lets out a sigh, believing this must be paradise. Harpy hopes that at least 4 more couples like them exist somewhere in the world, while Wool-kun wishes he could join their family. Queen just stares, struggling to grasp how a childhood friendship could evolve into marriage. Mino-san steps forward and gives Gold a thumbs up, tears in his eyes. Gold looks confused, unsure what he's being thanked for. Mino-san explains that 30 years of friendship, marriage, and raising a child is something far beyond anything they can compete with. That kind of bond is untouchable. Gold tries to brush off the praise, but Sylvia keeps pressing the point. He's already won. He's not interested in hearing it. Taking her hand, he announces that they're leaving. Before they go, Sylvia approaches Queen and offers her support, apologizing for the earlier misunderstanding. Queen is caught off guard, unsure what she means. Sylvia smirks and points out how Ryuka's jealous expression earlier looked exactly like Gold's when he gets jealous. Gold, clearly trying to end the conversation, pulls her away, but Sylvia finishes by saying she never wants to see that kind of expression on his face again. Orc-kun watches them go, realizing Gold's the quiet one while Sylvia does all the talking. Gold, clearly fed up, drags her along as the minions cheerfully shout after them, asking for more stories next time. Gold yells back, warning that they won't get off easy. Still, he waves goodbye. Queen thanks Van. He replies that he just didn't want the meat pies to go cold. Ryuka agrees they were pretty tasty and asks what the occasion was. The minions, of course, continue eavesdropping. Van explains he went on a treasure hunt, scored some gold, and decided to buy the pies. Mino-san feels relieved seeing Ryuka back to her usual self, while Orc-kun reflects that despite all the chaos Van caused, spending his treasure money on food was a pretty good call. Van, watching Gold and Sylvia disappear into the distance, admits that even though the couple is a bit much, they seem like people they could actually hang out with. Ryuka, standing beside him, starts to wonder how she lost her cool earlier and whether Van even noticed. She says nothing. Then, out of nowhere, Van wonders aloud if they'll be like that when they grow up. His words stop Ryuka and the minions in their tracks. She turns to him, confused, and asks what he means. Van simply says he hopes they'll always be together as friends. Ryuka finds him just as frustrating as ever. To Van, it's simple. He just wants to see her smile. Ryuka stands in silence, thinking for a moment, and decides to let him off the hook, for now. Meanwhile, Gold arrives in the city where a crowd gathers to hear his stories about the 50th floor. He shares all the cool details, impressing a blonde guy and an armored guy who can't believe what he's done. Van is there too, just sipping his drink and taking in all the praise Gold's getting. Out of nowhere, Gold comes over to our guy's table and asks for his name, which throws the blonde guy off. Gold then says he considers his debt to Van settled, and as he said before, he'll be back. Our guy assures him it's all good. The blonde and the armored guy are left speechless, wondering when this newbie got on the legendary adventurer's radar. They start guessing how much attention this new guy is drawing. The blonde, still shocked, says the newbie looks a bit confused. Sylvia jumps in, cheerfully suggesting they keep getting along. Van proposes they grab a bite to eat and make it a welcome party. His friends eagerly volunteer to handle all the plans. Gold, without a second thought, orders a giant strawberry parfait with 2 spoons, leaving Van and his senpais in mild shock. They quickly figure out that Gold is the type who loves those sweet treats. Back in the dungeon, Mino-san is meditating to level up his strength. He's trying super hard to clear his mind. Meanwhile, Ryuka asks Van what kind of training he usually does. When he asks why, she just says she was curious. The truth is, Mino-san asked the queen to ask about it without being obvious. He was a bit worried since Van didn't show up that day and he couldn't just sit around doing nothing. He figured if he could find out about our guy's routine, it might help him get stronger. Mino-san really wishes he could spill the beans. As for our guy, he just says that coming here on his own is his kind of training, which really annoys Ryuka. He usually hits some practice swings on a mountain close to his place. He thinks Gold trains there too since it's a solid spot for that. Plus, the mountain in his hometown is actually the biggest sacred mountain on the eastern continent. He used to meditate a lot to help refine the flow of mana in his body. Clearing his mind is pretty tough though. He sighs and wonders how it sounds. That's about it. Meanwhile, she asks how that's any different from what's normal. Mino-san is just trying to meditate and clear his head while everyone else is all about their training. It's tough for him to focus though. Meanwhile, Suxi-san is having a rough day. Some of our guy's friends bump into her, and she totally fails to charm them. She thought it would go like last time, but now she's freaking out about possibly getting kicked out of the dungeon since she hasn't managed to steal any life energy. She starts to consider looking for a different gig, but then she sees Mino-san sitting there meditating and decides to check in on him, curious about what he's up to. He's mumbling to himself, but he can't seem to stay on track with the meditation. It bugs him that he's thinking about the queen and Van instead of clearing his mind. Then he starts mumbling about getting married, which totally freaks Suxi-san out. Mino-san eventually notices her and admits that he was trying to meditate for training, but his mind just kept wandering, and he ended up spilling his thoughts aloud. Hearing about idle thoughts, she starts to wonder if he's just messing with her. She feels like an idiot for thinking Mino-san actually liked her. On the flip side, he's getting annoyed because he needs to get focused quickly, and he sees Suxi-san as a total pain. In fact, he can't stand her. But then she finds herself admiring him, realizing how strong the whole board is while he's out here looking for even more strength. She starts mumbling about how she hasn't beaten a single adventurer yet, and gets all nervous trying to charm them, which never seems to work out. She questions whether she even belongs in this dungeon, but Mino-san reassures her that he doesn't care if she makes mistakes. He explains that the goblins on the starting floors have only a 10% win rate, but they draw in adventurers, so the board can figure out how they get taken down. Plus, these goblins are actually pretty good at being defeated. This dungeon is world-class, and the queen runs things with a no-kill policy because she's super nice. He says that if she's not the best succubus, then that's actually her strong point. He thinks she's perfectly fine just the way she is. It turns out her emotional pleading even got to Van, which is something the board couldn't do. He suggests she should figure out how to use that, like maybe being a decoy for other monsters. While chatting with Suxi-san, Mino-san has an epiphany. He realizes this training is kinda like when he almost messed up his own strong point without even noticing. Instead of aiming for a clear mind, he thinks it's better to just let his imagination run wild while watching Ryuka and Van enjoy their time together. Suxi-san thinks it wouldn't hurt to try a bit harder. While Mino-san's daydreaming about the honeymoon, she quickly heads off. Meanwhile, Mino-san starts rambling about his wild fantasies every day. A few days later, he feels like he's bursting with energy, his mind focused on the childhood friends flirting. The dungeon's little creatures notice he's leveled up too. Orc-kun is all about that muscle training, while Harpy is pushing her speed to Mach 5. Wol-kun gains the power of Fenrir, making everyone look super strong and a bit intimidating. They're all pumped about finally being able to take on intruders. After defeating them, Van reaches Ryuka's chamber. When she asks how it went, he says the minions seemed strong. She tells him not to sugarcoat it. On the flip side, Suxi-san also upgrades her decoys, pulling off some impressive moves with her usual mishaps.
Here I am.